Welcome everyone to the newest series of the Power of Change podcast. So, in this series, we're going to keep it a bit more casual and have a drink and talk about the latest news in climate, clean tech, and sustainability. Joining me is my co-host, Mr. Frederick Fernandez. Mr. Fred, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Good Friday?
It's a really great Friday. Sun is shining.
Yeah.
Yeah, weather's turning
Totally.
up. Yeah.
So what are you drinking today?
Oh, I'm just drinking a little gin cocktail. Gin and soda.
Cocktails.
Yeah.
Fancy. Yeah, I've got my, Campio Brewing from Edmonton, Alberta, lager. I'm into the craft beers. And
Shout out.
Open that up. Cheers.
Cheers. I don't know, maybe by episode 200 you could get some kind of sponsorship. Craft beer. Hello.
Craft beer sponsorship. Yeah, totally. So the first and most important order of business is we don't have a name for this series.
Right.
So I think to start it off, we're gonna, spitball some ideas of what we're gonna call this, and as I said, we're gonna talk about more of the up and coming kind of current events with, clean tech, sustainability, and environmental issues. So what are you thinking, Fred?
How about... sustainability is a pretty good buzzword. How about sustainability, buddy?
Yeah, you're so creative.
Thanks, man. How about you? What do you got?
Energy exchange? Does that sound good, or is that too cheesy?
Okay. Exchange with an E or an X?
Yeah, well, I think the X thing is kind of like naming your kid like Jackson with an X. and like, I don't know if I'm down with that.
Right, but what if Jackson was spelled with a capital X in the middle?
Yeah, in the middle, right. How about energy conversation? Sustainability conversation. Come on, Fred.
I like to combine words. Can we do that with any of these? Let's see, sustainability, energy, exchange. No. Our climate journey.
Well, I think now you're just making fun of me.
No. How so? I'm just coming up with these out of my, just right off the top of my head.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Okay.
Have we tried using generators? No.
I did.
You did?
I did, I think. And I didn't have much success. It's actually not as easy as you might think. So
fair enough.
Feel free if you want to pull one up and start rolling some ideas off your head. Right.
Energy something, that's for sure. I think that is the way to go. It sounds powerful. We're having a casual conversation.
Yeah. So what about casual energy?
What? Dude, that sounds so good. I love that.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing name. That's the one we should go with.
Casual energy. Because it is. It's a casual conversation about energy. Cool.
That works for me. I think we got our name.
I think that's it.
Anyway, so I guess let's start off. The biggest thing to let people, especially those who are listening from the province of Alberta, the province just rolled out some new incentives that will cover up to 25 to 50% of solar and energy efficiency projects.
Yeah.
They've set aside $55 million to help businesses transition to more efficient technology. So It sounds like, Fred, like solar is getting pretty popular in Alberta. I mean, it's the program just sent out an email that said that 2/3 of the rebates set aside for solar projects have already been spoken for.
That's right.
Even though the program has only been out a few weeks, I mean, that sounds pretty amazing. That there's lots of kind of a momentum in that space.
Well, I mean, it only makes sense. I mean, with solar being touted as the next boom in Alberta, it makes sense that businesses are taking advantage of it. Everyone from like farms to manufacturing to anyone with a roof, really. And the crazy thing about the ESB is it's just businesses. So who knows what the residential side looks like with people like looking into it, and with more news coming out, you know?
Yeah, totally. And I guess now it's been long enough that solar is starting to have more of that mainstream appeal, right? Even in Alberta, even though we're kind of a laggard in a sense when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to renewable energy, but it's had enough of a profile for a few years now that people are
Mm-hmm.
more interested in investing it, especially with rebates. That really reduces that ROI, so it makes it kind of a good investment strategy, right? As compared to in the past.
Oh, absolutely. I also want to add too, Jason, that I mean, even though they're at yeah 2/3 of the rebate, like they are capping it at 30% of the $55 million fund.
Yeah, good point. Good
Yeah.
point for calling that out for
So
sure.
really, it's not even 10. It's like 9% left of the fund
Yeah.
allocated to solar projects. So it really just shows, like you said, that a lot of businesses are paying attention to solar. And with the ESB coming out, like I hope the government takes note of that interest in solar, and hopefully after the ESB is said and done, that there'll be more programs to adopt solar in other kind of industries as well.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, good times. Well, hopefully people can take advantage of this program, and if
Yeah.
not the solar rebates and the energy efficiency rebates, because there's still a lot of that fund set aside for other kinds of energy efficiency projects. So
Which
that's good.
I mean, which to just touch up on really quick is pretty crazy. I mean, everything from geothermal to biomass, like almost any industry in the province can benefit somehow from adopting one of these technologies. So, and
Yeah.
if not more rebates, because solar being a 25% rebate, specifically, you have cogeneration and biomass and geothermal at 50%. So, yeah, I mean, people should look into it.
Yeah, for sure. All kinds of technologies supported that I'm not that familiar with myself, like
Hmm.
steam traps and condensing
Right.
economizers and
Yeah.
stuff probably related to industrial and agricultural settings that you probably don't see as often. But yeah, it's a
Yeah.
really good opportunity for all kinds of businesses to really take advantage for sure.
Totally.
So the next thing I read about today, and
Hmm.
apparently, this is actually breaking news, quite literally from CBC.ca today. Apparently, the federal conservatives are having their convention starting yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Right.
And they're looking to, jump their policy platform from 1955 to 1998 and admit that climate change is real. This is actually what's going on right now. Um, and I guess they're in a fierce debate over a motion put forward by a Quebec riding to declare, yeah, climate change is real. It's pretty amazing that that's still a matter of debate in
What?
Canadian politics.
That you're telling me that they have not recognized and they're debating whether or not climate change is real or not.
Yeah, well, exactly. To adopt that as a policy platform. And I guess the federal conservatives are in this position, right, where Aaron O'Toole being a new leader,
Yeah.
who's maybe a little bit more right. Well, I guess compared to Andrew Scheer, I'm not quite sure.
Sure.
But they recognize in order to kind of maybe have an opportunity at taking government and in the upcoming election, whenever that
Hmm.
might be, they may have to like broaden their tent and broaden their platform. And I think the
Right.
thing is that with the Conservative Party, because it's an amalgamation of the former, federal PCs, the Reform Party,
Hmm.
and the Canadian Alliance, there's kind of an amalgamation of different kind of political stripes even within the Conservative Party. So you have more progressive conservatives that are probably more pro-environmental,
Right.
whereas that you have a lot within that party that kind of see things a little bit differently. And it's just amazing though that it's not a more widespread
Consensus.
yeah, exactly. It's pretty amazing.
Oh man, yeah, that's shocking to me. But again, like, I really can't reflect on it. I mean, even like you said, even in the party, there's a spectrum of thought too.
Mm-hmm.
My real question is like, who are the parties that would benefit from this monetarily?
From adopting a
Just
platform that
just either or platform, right? And why is there a debate in it when? I guess I should read the article itself too, but I'm not too. I guess I'm not too familiar with the rhetoric of the side that would argue against that. You know.
Yeah, no. To be honest, I am not too familiar with the opposing
Mhm.
arguments as well. I think even in the article, I mean, they mentioned a couple of things, like say there are members who say that people are focusing too much on GHG emissions themselves rather than
Mm.
looking at environmental issues as a whole.
Okay.
I feel it's kind of a cop out, but
Sure. A
well, I
lot
mean
of it
that's what they
does. Yeah.
say. But of course, I think the prevailing counter argument is more about the compromise to the economy and industry, or the
Hmm.
perceived compromise, to the economy. If you're to
Hmm.
focus on implementing, you know, stricter environmental regulations. So
Right.
that's probably the counter argument.
I mean, I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. It's sometimes it's hard for me to just think of that perspective because it's just like, yeah, of course the climate is changing, but I mean, I'm not fully aware of just what those regulations and how they explicitly affect the entire broad spectrum of the economy, you know.
Hmm.
But I know from my perspective here, just as a person living in one of the cities, I mean, yeah, climate change is real. I still think climate is changing like year by year, and like you could look at data, right?
Yeah.
So it just feels like when you see an article like this where our conservative party is debating this, it feels like one step forward, two steps back kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's pretty amazing because, like, it's funny. You know, Stephen Harper, obviously former Prime Minister of Canada, his kind of person that brought him up to power, was Preston Manning, and he's kind of a grandfather of like the Conservative Party of Canada or
Hmm.
conservative movement in Canada. Maybe not specifically the party,
Right.
but it's funny how, I mean, I guess he's been silent over the last few years, but even towards the end of Stephen Harper's last term,
Hmm.
he was very much a vocal proponent or a supporter of climate action as well as implementing a carbon tax. And it's funny how like that
Hmm.
older generation of conservatives that were very much a part of shaping this current kind of conservative movement in Canada,
Hmm.
we're still very much in support of environmental issues, but how we've almost moved towards more of an American style republicanism
Hmm.
that is kind of anti-climate, which is yeah, it's just strange how it's evolved, definitely.
Yeah. Oh man, I mean, it really does feel. I mean, we are a multi-party system,
Hmm.
but year after year, it feels like we are just like the parties are just you know really segmented into two halves effectively. Um,
Totally.
so mirroring that from the states down there, I don't know. It just feels troubling, but yeah, I mean, Hard to say. I mean, the U.S. is sort of looking like they're making some positive moves when it comes to energy. So that's always a positive look at that. But who knows what 2021 has to bring for us, right?
Yeah, totally. So the next thing I want to talk about, and I know this is old news, right? This happened over a month ago, but we haven't had the opportunity to really discuss this.
Okay.
And that was a big storm that happened in Texas that forced electricity prices to jump over 50 times. And for those who aren't familiar, basically there was a snowstorm and it went below zero in Texas, and obviously Texans aren't as equipped with dealing with extreme weather, especially not like we are up here. And because most of their heating is actually electric heat, because they don't have to deal with the extreme cold, it caused a lot of demand on the grid, and that obviously they couldn't meet capacity, and it caused rolling blackouts, and that demand forced power prices to jump by over 50 times, and quite literally. Normally, it would cost around $18 US to charge a Tesla, and the cost jumped to over $900. But
Oh my
that's actually a
goodness.
really interesting thing to talk about because, in understanding the reasons why this happened. And apparently, Texas has chosen not to interconnect with electrical utilities in other states. And there's
Ah.
actually kind of like interconnection zones in North
Hmm.
America. You have the Western interconnection zone, you have the Quebec interconnection zone, the Eastern one, I forget what it's called. Um, and yeah, no, Texas is not connected with other states. So what happened
Right.
was they couldn't meet that demand and they couldn't buy from neighboring states in order to supplement that power demand.
Right.
Um, but that really, to me, is an interesting thought experiment around how like renewable energy systems can supplement in these kinds of events potentially, or
Hmm.
even just having more of a collaborative approach to providing energy generally,
Right.
or maybe a distributed approach. Maybe. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, first off, I just want to comment on like why are the customer bearing the brunt of this? Like, just reading the article, having to owe X amount of dollars where he had no access to electricity is absurd. Um, and like, I mean, was it? It begs the question on like you said, they're in like the grid connection to the rest of the states, or even making that partnership. I mean, what was the real reason against that? Is sort of what what I would like to know, and
Yeah,
not enough forethought into an event like this. But still, the people are the one to bear the brunt of like paying exorbitant amount of electrical bills. Like that doesn't
yeah.
make sense to me.
Yeah, well, apparently what happened, from what I understand, and I haven't done a huge amount of research in this,
Hmm.
but when they were first kind of setting up their grid, in order to join that Eastern network, or I guess maybe those neighboring interconnection networks, they
Hmm.
had to implement certain electricity regulations, but they wanted to
Okay,
keep it an open free market with like fluctuating power prices based
I
on
see.
demand. And whereas I
Okay,
think joining one of those interconnection zones would have
yeah,
forced them to have certain kind of, capped regulations.
fair
Um,
enough. Okay,
that they just, because they're libertarian, they
yep,
are more inclined to just let the free market govern it. And
yeah,
so what was happening, I guess, is that when there were rolling blackouts, for those who still had power, because the demand was so high, their lights stay on,
yeah,
right? And all their yeah, they still have power to the house. And then
yeah.
what happens is that they get
The
the bill
rate.
the following month,
Hmm.
and then it turns out that normal amount of electricity that they were consuming uh, ended up being so much more, just because they
Right.
were fortunate enough to still have power during that time period, which is an interesting thing to kind of like not really be aware of, what you're going to be paying for a utility until after the fact.
Yeah, oh man, that's a tough one. I still don't think the customers should be, bearing that responsibility, you know? There should have been, I don't know if there were insurances made for disasters like this, but man,
Yeah.
just as a consumer, like that's the worst thing. Like this was not my fault at all, but
Yeah.
I'm the one still paying for it. What the heck? Yeah. I really just side with the consumer here, and it just doesn't seem. It just seems very one-sided. So.
Totally. Interesting, but I guess maybe that. Well, I don't think we have a perfect system in Alberta either.
Yeah.
But we're at least protected with certain market caps in the regulations.
sure.
So, and then they also take the average price over the month before they give you your final price, rather than like your kind of cumulative price or cumulative
Right.
cost amount that you're being billed.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool. In other news, more of an internal announcement, with Origin. So we want to announce that we're launching a program to help people with mental health and disabilities transition and develop meaningful careers. So we're passionate about giving back to the community, and we hope to make a difference in many people's lives. So
Yeah.
we wanted to announce that we're looking for partners in order to support this project. We're looking for a project partner to help offer a runway of work to keep participants working for at least a period of a year. We're looking for a community support partner that can refer us people who are in the right stage of their transition and offer outreach support. And then we're also looking for a training partner that can offer participants a 2-week safety and electrical foundations training. And that would help ensure that participants are successful in our program. If you'd like to want to know more, or or support the program in some way, definitely send us an email at info@originenergy.ca.
Right on. Well, Jay, did you hear about President Biden's adoption of EV vehicles?
No, actually, I haven't heard about that.
All right, interesting. So at the end of January, one of President Biden's new policies, or his executive order, was to actually change the entire federal vehicle fleet to EVs. Yeah.
Awesome.
So
I'm just gonna pause for a second and say, is that gin kicking in?
Yeah, do it. Because it already did, already 10 minutes ago, man. I don't know if you've already noticed, but
I think I can hear it for sure.
Oh yeah, dude. Already a while ago, man.
And we're only 2 minutes into the podcast.
God damn it. I love it. This is funny.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt. Please continue.
Yeah, I mean, what did it say in the article? About 645,000 vehicles will be switched to EVs. And I mean, it's not just like, I guess it's really pushing the market, and it's really pushing the technology, because these EVs are going to be, fully equipped with bidirectional EVs. And, they're not only just the vehicles themselves, but the infrastructure that they'll have to create to charge the vehicles. It's just a good sign for the industry as a whole. And just to reflect, I actually had a great chat with a sustainable projects company, nonprofit, with their CEO and president. And it was around that time in the end of January, and he definitely said he was able to persuade and get jobs and win bids because of that news alone. Just because we know it's America, and that sentiment all across the world will reflect in that industry. So even on a micro scale, like me personally, I'm following a couple of EV stocks, and definitely around that time, that sentiment really showed.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're saying that actually kind of tipped the scales for people to actually move towards electric vehicles? Just the announcement?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting. Like it's amazing that like how people are swayed by, I don't know, just like public media coverage of adoption of that stuff, right? Where it's like,
Hmm.
before it would have been it's the same for them to kind of move towards, install or buying an electric car, but just the fact that like there's an announcement that kind of tipped the scales and made them move towards actually adopting it. It's pretty amazing how just the symbolism of it can make such a difference.
Agreed. I think like you said, just that symbolism alone, and
Hmm.
especially it coming from a newly minted president,
Yeah.
and off the the back of a highly contested president, mind you.
Yeah.
So it's a big shift in I'm sure the whole public's eye of energy in America, but as us, being the cousins up north, we're
Yeah.
just watching, and us being a energy efficiency company alone, it's just
Yeah.
great to see that that country is leading the way, at least in that sentiment.
Yeah. So what are you saying that Trump didn't enact this policy to
No,
adopt EVs? Really?
unfortunately, no. Are you surprised?
Uh, I mean, wasn't he planning on building a solar array on the moon or something like that?
No comment.
I'm not- yeah. Yeah, no, definitely very, very interesting. I'm glad there's kind of been more movement, and I guess like you say though, like even though Biden's making some interesting moves, he's still kind of a contested or
Hmm.
a divisive or a divisive like president because being that we're in Alberta, and obviously there's a lot of controversy around the fact that he's canceled Keystone,
Yeah.
uh, which a lot of people here, were counting on. But
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. It's probably a little bit controversial of me to talk about it, on this podcast. But
Hmm.
yeah, I guess I feel like uh, I think you kind of have to be all in, kind of moving towards things that make sense for all of us, right?
For
Yeah.
sure. And I mean, at least if we're looking at like sustainability and future planning and new industries, I think this is a right push in the right direction. I think sentiment about oil and gas has changed just easily over COVID itself. So yeah, it's just a good sign, and I just hope that sort of trickles down, and our neck of the woods sort of looks at that and feels more inclined to adopt the technology. I mean, when are you getting an EV? Are you planning on getting one anytime soon?
I'd yeah love to get an EV.
Yeah.
I guess well the money's just not there for me to spend that much on a car, and
Yeah.
unfortunately we're still at a point where there's a price premium for electric vehicles.
Right.
I guess the alternative, and not that this is the same entirely,
Hmm.
but I've always had this idea in the back of my mind to convert my car to ethanol or E85. So that's a good
Oh,
compromise, right? So,
can you
uh,
explain that a bit? I'm not too
yeah,
aware, but that sounds interesting.
yeah. So you can actually, well, most American vehicles actually come with what's called a flex fuel sensor.
Okay.
And so from the factory, because it's been legislated down there for some years, you can actually put a mix of 85% alcohol and only 15% gasoline in your vehicle and run it off that, and the
Hmm.
computer can sense when your gas tank is filled with ethanol versus gasoline, and then
Hmm.
switch its tune based on
Yeah.
what you're
Whoa.
using. Or if there's a mix of both, it dynamically adjusts based on the different ratios of
Right.
E85
What?
or gasoline, right? And so what's really interesting about that is that there's not as many GHG emissions that come from ethanol. There's definitely no particulate. So this
Hmm.
particulate that comes from gasoline, lots of particulate that comes from diesel.
Yeah.
Um, very little particulate that comes from E85, but there's also fewer GHG emissions that
Interesting.
come out of your tailpipe when you're burning
Yeah.
E85. But which the most interesting though is that if you're a car enthusiast, usually you get more performance out of your car.
Wow, really
you
on
know,
ethanol.
on ethanol.
Where would you fuel up for ethanol?
There's actually quite a few gas stations around town, even here in Calgary, and most municipalities
Oh.
now, or most cities have, at least a few ethanol gas
Uh-huh.
stations. So where I am, there's one off of 17th,
Okay.
G&B Fuels, I believe, and they sell ethanol.
Whoa.
And what's interesting is that it actually saves you money as well because it's cheaper than like premium gasoline.
Right.
So if you have a car that takes premium, you can
Yeah.
convert it to ethanol, and you pay less,
Hmm.
as well as you get more performance out of ethanol.
Is
So
consumption sort of similar as well? Engine
not
like
really. No, you burn. Well, I mean, I guess if you're an enthusiast, you'll be burning a lot more fuel
of
by
course, but for
volume.
regular just driving to and from work, if people are still doing that, is it still
Yeah,
comparable? I've never heard
yeah.
of that, to be honest, and that's sort of fascinating. Is it like, what is the price cost for converting to that?
Yeah, it's
That's
probably going to
interesting.
depend on your vehicle.
Okay, okay,
And I kind of did the math on my old Subaru before I sold that, and I
hmm
think I'd probably be able to do that for around $1,500. My current vehicle, maybe a little bit more.
right.
Yeah, like I said, if you buy an American vehicle, a Ford or Chevy or
Yeah.
whatever, they should be able to do that from the factory, and that would be the way to go. And then you can
Oh,
just go to a flex fuel station and then do it. So anything obviously Japanese or
yeah.
European,
Need to get it
or
converted.
South Korean or whatever, like
Yeah.
Kia and stuff. You would have to get it, converted. And
Hmm.
usually it involves a few different things. So you probably have to well, if you're an enthusiast, you'll definitely have to upgrade your fuel pump.
Sure.
But more importantly, like you can do the conversion without a flex fuel sensor and just get a tune by a shop that can do a
Yeah.
tune on the computer.
Yeah.
But the problem is if you just do the tune, then you're stuck to only using ethanol. If you get the flex fuel
Oh,
sensor, it
you
will
could have the
dynamically
combo, right?
know. Yeah, like you can just use whatever fuel is available, and then it'll work just
Ah,
fine.
that is super fascinating.
Yeah.
Huh.
So yeah, no, like I definitely want an electric car.
Yep.
I'm not sure how I feel about Tesla though, right? I'm not sure how I feel
Hmm.
about, their values, even though I appreciate the technology that they're bringing
Yeah.
to market, and I'm sort of waiting for some better options to be more commonly available.
Right.
Whereas like you can get entry level, like Nissan Leafs and stuff like
Leafs.
that. But
Yep.
if you want a full size family vehicle, you're really your only option right now, is a Tesla. I
Tesla.
guess maybe
Yeah.
there are some other vehicles just starting to come to market. So I'm sort of
Yeah.
waiting for that to come. But ideally, I'd love to be able to make my own custom electric car.
A
My
custom
old
electric.
Yeah, I planned for a long time my old Japanese key truck before I
Yeah.
sold it. I really wanted to do an electric conversion. It just costs
Hmm.
so much. But you know what I'd love to do
What's
is
that?
buy like a 1969 like Ford Ranchero or an old El Camino
Oh
and
my
make it
God.
an electric conversion. That would be so amazing.
That would be wild. Absolutely. You might have to just put a loudspeaker in the back just so you could have that sound.
Yeah, I'm totally.
The
Yeah,
whole
no, but I would just love the feeling of getting to a red light and people thinking that like, or you're lined up against some car that thinks it's fast, and
Yeah.
they think that you're just some old beater that can't race, and then you've got like a Tesla driveline under there, just
Oh
like
my
take off.
God. And they see you take off with no noise at all. That's the
Yeah,
funniest part.
yeah. How about you? You gonna get yourself an EV?
Eventually. Obviously, that's what the market sort of, that's the direction of the market. But I mean, I am in the market for a new vehicle. But Yeah, we'll have to see. I know. Like I said, market sentiment with Biden getting those fleets is just good. So I'm just waiting until there's more options to choose from.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Well, great chatting with you, Fred. I really appreciate it. We're gonna do this next time on our next episode of Casual Energy.
Love it, Jason. Thank you.
To learn more about how you can save money and lower your environmental footprint, visit originenergy.ca. Remember, you can always leave us an audio message by visiting anchor.fm/originpoc. We'll definitely include interesting messages in future episodes. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for helping us power brighter communities.